say, this is the early Freeman stuff. So it's a good question. What somebody asked, is court a church? And very, very clever question, and yet it is. But it's also these other things as well. So first, it's not a court building like we say, it's just a name. Secondly, when you go in there, it's a ship. So we are subject to jurisdiction, maritime jurisdiction, commercial basically. So it's a ship. So what they do is, let's say magistrates for instance, a magistrate, what they'll do is they might have a recess. First time you might go in, something happens, so they don't adjourn it, so you go in, you have a little bit of a hearing, and they go into the back room. Well, then they'll come back out again. They might have another little bit of a hearing, and they go into the back room again. They're only allowed to go into that back room twice. So in total, you can only be seen 3 times on that day. Now, that might mean nothing to most people. They think they're just having a recess to just have a chat. They're not. What happens is when you first walk into a court that you perceive to be a court, and you stand in the dock, that's why you do it originally. One of the first things you do is it's a ship, subject to maritime law. So I quickly realised this, but what I didn't realise, it took me quite a long time, is I get the better of them standing on my rights, and what they do is they decide to have a recess. Now what they do is they go back out again. When they come back out the second time, remember they're only allowed to do it in total 3 times. So when they come out the second time, it becomes a church. So it's progressed up from a ship to a church. Well, the best way to explain it is, first it's maritime law, then it's a type of, second one's like a type of statute, but it's still church. But the third time they come out, and final time, what they're doing is they're moving up a level each time. So you are subject, the third time they come out, and the final time, they've upped the ante, so to speak. If I'm getting the better of them, they'll recess, come back out, what they class as a higher jurisdiction. I get the better of them again, they'll go back out, and they'll come back out the third time to their highest jurisdiction, which is the top part of the church, basically. So it's a ship, it's Admiralty law, maritime law, it's also high statute law. Well, there is no high statute law, that's what they class as high statute law. Ultimately, it's a church. So why is it a church? Well, it sounds strange, doesn't it? Well, you have a clerk to the justices, or a clerk to the court? That's actually a cleric, that's clergy. It's going to be hard for you to actually take this in, but it's right. The original thing that was the ship, where the dock is, notice how the judges sit higher than us, don't they? Well, that's actually an altar. Now, everything to do with law and court is they throw paperwork our way, don't they? Well, it's not. The original form of any sort of law, if you trace it back hundreds, thousands of years ago, is verbal. It's speech. Law starts with speech. This is why they manipulate the words so much. It's not they want it on pieces of paper. Excuse me. They want it on pieces of paper. This is why we're flooded with paperwork. Why do they want it on pieces of paper? Remember the game of pushing it backwards and forwards, like I said. They cannot be liable if it's done on paper. So they never sign anything, and they want us to sign everything. The real basis of all law is verbal. It comes from God's law. That's why it was written down in the Bible. God's law, how can I explain? Right, okay, it's a church because as soon as they ask you to go to court, what do you go to? You go to a hearing. Right, they're listening, it's a hearing. But because it is a church, we are classed as sinners. That's why. When we go to court, we're actually sinners and they're going to hear our confession. That's all it's about. It's also about balancing the books. This is what I mean about the commercial admiralty law. So the first they try to get you on the easy bit, the first bit, where it's a ship, and most people fall down at that stage anyway. But then they come out a second time with slightly higher, and if you're really clever, or you think you're clever like I am, they'll come out with a third one. The third one's the ultimate penance. It's the ultimate confession to the ultimate bloody priest. So the judges are high priests. I know it's going to be hard for you to believe this, and I think some of them know, and some of them might not know. But they're high priests. Why are they high priests? Have you ever been to court? Have you ever seen a solicitor? What does he do? Your worship. And they bow, don't they? They bow down to him. It's a religion. It's all sorts, but it is a church. So you're a sinner going, and they're going to hear your confession. So They might call you a defendant, so straight away everything's got a negative connotation on it. You're a defendant. Oh, I have to go to court, and you're in a defensive position. Then what do? They make you plead. Well, pleading's a form of begging, isn't it? What they really are is that you are already guilty, which is why it's called summary judgment. You are already classed as a sinner with the stain of original sin. You go to court, you're a sinner anyway, or you have a solicitor to back you up, but what does your solicitor and their solicitor, or your barrister and the opposing barrister, they bow down to the same priest, don't they? So they're all in it together. They're all bowing down to your worship, which is a high priest. So this is why it's a church. So you can't win, can you? Because no matter which side of the coin, whether you're attacking or defending or whatever you're doing, if you're having representation, they're all bowing down to the same priest. They're all part of the same church. How can you ever do anything about it? You can't. So you're guilty straight away before you go in. And if you do have a solicitor, all he's going to do is cut you a deal, really. He's going to try and get you to... You are a sinner, you're going for your penance, and instead of having to say 1,000 Hail Marys, he might do a bit of chatting, be a bit clever, and you've only got to say 500 Hail Marys. He's got no way is he representing you, is he trying to get you off anything. So I'm going to go into more detail about why that's a church. It's a really spooky thing, it is, and it comes back from the Vatican. I forgot to tell you, it's also in court a trust meeting, and this is the middle one I was telling you about. Wow, it's complicated. See, a simple question like, is a court a church, can lead to this. You've got your Maritime Admiralty at first on your ship, but the whole three things are encompassed in each one. It's complicated, but there's all this going off. None of it's to give you justice. None of it's to administer justice. It's all to trick us. And if we get him wise to it, they'll move up a jurisdiction. The middle one is a trust. It's a trustees meeting. The judge or magistrate are administering the trust. The person that's taking to court becomes a beneficiary, and we walk in as trustees, and we've got no rights whatsoever. That's why they can tell us what to do. So bear in mind, we walk in as a seafaring vessel with a birth certificate, so that's the shipping law. We've got no rights. Or we walk in as a trustee, and it becomes trust law, and we've got no rights. Or ultimately, we walk in as a sinner, and we do this anyway, in all the three stages. So it's three in it, the unholy trinity. We walk into church as a sinner to be seen by the high priest, to plead and beg for him not to take too much action against us, and that's why the 97% of the time side against us. So yeah, that was a good question, that, and I think I'm going to do quite a long thing on this.